Before getting into today's video, I have a bit of important admin. So you guys already know I have been running giveaway events for the last month or so, and there are 3 winners who still haven't gotten back to me with your details. Now, the devs just told me I need to submit the list of all of the winners by end of today. So if you're watching this video, please get back to me ASAP. Otherwise, you will be essentially forfeiting your slots. Okay? So please do reach out to me ASAP. I have already sent message to you on Discord for the last few days. So please do get back to me. Similarly, if one of the viewers watching this video right now happen to know one of them in person or in game, etc., please pass on the message and ask them to get back to me ASAP. All right, thank you. Okay, today's video is going to be about the last 3 SSR character we just got, and in fact they are the last 3 SSR character as of right now on JP server as well. So let's just take them off one by one. I will save Aran at the end of the video because he is obviously going to be the best character out of the bunch, and I will also be summoning for him as well, okay, at the end of the video. So let's start off with Ginjima. He is probably going to be the worst option out of the 3, so definitely do not select him, and hopefully you guys do not get him on unwanted pity, so you don't lose a 50-50 to him. But basically what makes him bad is because he's trying to be both like a receiver and also a power spiker at the same time. So a lot of wind spiker do have receive skill, which is fair, but then obviously he actually buff up his own receive skill, and then also at the same time he also have this thing. I mean, he doesn't have to be the one receiving, but for each of the receive tag character on your field, you are actually going to get some extra buff as well. Okay, now that basically means you're going to have a hard time actually trying to build him or try to specialize him. Now if you don't actually specialize him and actually build him as a hybrid, what's going to end up happening is that he just wouldn't be performing as well as a specialist. That's pretty much the main thing. So if you actually want like a proper power spiker, you probably go for the last 3 Wazuyumi or Tanaka, who everyone have access to since day 1 of global launch. Whereas if you actually want to go for like a more receiving based character, you have Kita, who's going to be the best choice. Okay, so the only one he can somewhat compare to, I guess, is more going to be the likes of Ohira, so Rion Ohira, because Rion Ohira is also trying to do a bit of a hybrid between receive and also power spike. But Ginjima is slightly worse than him as well, because at least Ohira does have a bit of a utility use case once you actually dupe him up, whereas this one, he doesn't even have that utility aspect, right? It's just improving himself. So that's kind of why he's definitely going to be the worst character out of the bunch here. Then next up we have Akagi. He is actually going to be a really good liberal, and in fact he's actually going to be quite nice in 2 school-based teams. Number 1 is going to be Fukudani team, and that's because he is basically the best liberal in order to actually increase team morale. Now this is not actually limited to a certain amount per attempt, so it's just whenever he do receive or save. So in theory you can even get 20 or 30 morale point just from him if there's actually happen to be like a really long rally, etc. So that's kind of why he definitely slots in very well for Fukudani teams. He obviously goes also quite well with Inarizaki team, but more in particular, I guess, just pairing up with Kita, and that's mainly because once you actually get him to skill resonance 2, whenever someone in the back row fail to do a critical action, you can actually reduce the cooldown. And obviously Kita is designed to never crit, so that's kind of why they actually have really good synergy, and also good synergy with the Inarizaki as a whole, because a lot of the Inarizaki players are trying to not crit. Okay, so that's kind of the main thing you want to know for him. Now he does have a somewhat fancy passive ability as well, which is basically when the enemy actually perform power spike, you will be able to apply a debuff which reduces their power down. Okay, but it only lasts for 3 necrossing. And then the last part of this passive skill says that if the opponent spiker has a debuff ability, your side also gains 4%. But what makes this somewhat annoying is that for someone else to spike again after they have already been applied this debuff and it only lasts for 3 necrossing, you are basically expecting them to have a cooldown of 3 or less. And that basically means unless you are facing up against someone like skill resonance 2 Ginjima or skill resonance 4 Bokuto, who can actually spam their ultimate back to back, and therefore they will actually be spiking continuously. Otherwise, you won't really be able to trigger the last half of this effect. Okay, so that's something for you to bear in mind. And then in terms of the skill resonance, like I said, skill resonance 2 does have very good synergy with Kita and also in Narizaki team as a whole. And then skill resonance 4 is also really good. good because you are able to increase his own defense technique, and also you are actually able to increase the attack technique for your next spike as well. And attack technique and defense technique, those are actually two things which is actually going to be quite difficult for you to gain buff. Like if you actually look through all of the character skills, there are loads of buffs in terms of like awareness, or strength, or like power spike, etc. But attack technique and defense technique, they're a bit more rare. So for Akagi, who's actually a liberal, capable of increasing your size defense technique and also attack technique, if you do happen to have skill resonance 4, that actually makes him pretty valuable if you actually want to maximize your damage, etc. So that's kind of he is definitely very, very good with being a liberal. So you can definitely consider picking him up if you don't already have like a dedicated liberal. Also bear in mind that obviously the schedule for future character could change, but the next UR character or SP character who is going to be liberal is going to be at least like 2 or maybe even 3 months away from us, okay, from right now. So that is definitely going to be a good idea to pick up a good SSR liberal if you don't have one invested already. Okay, so that's going to be Akagi, but now let's move on to the highlight, which is Aran Ojira. Now, Aran Ojira's main thing is that you can almost think of him as a much upgraded version of Asahi, in the sense that when he spikes, he is able to actually consume huge amount of his stamina. It's 60% of his stamina, okay? And that will actually increase his spike power by a huge amount as well. So he is definitely going to hit very, very hard. And also at the same time, he does actually restore a tiny bit of stamina. The way this works is that when you actually consume stamina, you gain 1 stack of a certain buff called Second Wind. Each one of them is going to increase his attack technique. Once again, remember, attack technique is actually really hard to increase in this game. So therefore, this is actually going to be a really good buff, assuming you're actually able to consume quite a bit of stamina. At the end of each turn, you are actually able to get some stamina back as well. Okay, so basically for every 10 stamina consumed, you are actually going to get 4 stamina back. So in some sense, even though he's actually reducing 60% of his stamina, if you then also factor in the fact that you are actually going to get 40% of the 60% consumed, then it kind of work out to be more or less you only consume like 36% of stamina every single time you spike. Obviously, there's going to be some kind of rounding because, for example, let's say if you consume 19 stamina, you're only going to get 1 stack. You're not going to get 2 stacks. So there could be some rounding issues there. But still, what I'm trying to say is that even though it says like 60 stamina, in reality, it's not going to be as bad as that. And what makes it even better is that he actually has both level of his skill resonance is actually going to be further improving his stamina issue as well, okay? So the first one, you're just going to get 3 stacks, and remember, each stack is able to restore you 4 stamina. So even just getting skill resonance 2, you're already able to guarantee an extra 12 stamina every single time. 12 stamina at the beginning of the match when you're literally consuming something crazy like 60%, that doesn't sound like much. But once you move towards second half of the match, when you maybe only consuming 30% of stamina each time, the fact that you're able to guarantee at least 12 stamina back every single turn is actually going to be quite massive, okay? So this is definitely a very good skill resonance to have. I would almost say that if you do want to play Aran or Jiro, you have to bare minimum to get skill resonance 2, okay? Even at skill resonance 2, he is still going to use up a lot of his stamina, so it's still going to be ideal if you have the likes of Kita. However, at skill resonance 4, this is potentially another thing where he can almost have like a steady supply of stamina without running into any issue, because whenever someone recovers stamina on your side, he's able to further recover a stamina. Now remember, he's already able to recover stamina by himself because he will be guaranteed at least 3 stacks, which he will also be using. So this two together is already able to guarantee at least 20 stamina back every single time, and that's actually going to be pretty massive. That almost means that he would almost never be running into an issue where he will be subbed off due to lack of stamina, because even when you actually get into a situation where you're consuming so much stamina that your stamina goes below the threshold, which I think is like 25 stamina, where you would then potentially be subbed off, he would just recover 20 stamina back, okay? So he shouldn't really get into an issue where you... Actually, I'm not too sure when the sub is going to happen, whether it will be happen before the stamina is applied or afterwards, but in theory, you still shouldn't be able to drop down to that low because you would have gotten 20 stamina before the end of your last turn, so it's unlikely that you'll be able to waste so much stamina in a single time for him to be subbed off. So that's kind of what skill readiness 4 is also going to be quite nice if you do want to guarantee him to be on the field like consistently the whole time. Now, there's actually one other thing I want to talk about Aran, which is not actually on his kit, well, it's not shown on the kit, but this is kind of what makes him actually broken in club content. In case you guys don't know, there has already been some screenshots surfaced around on the JP server where you are able to score insane amount of damage using Aran Juro, like higher than a lot of the UR character. And a lot of people are wondering, how are you able to do that? The answer is simple. It's not shown on the screen, but his ultimate attack doesn't have a cooldown. Well, actually, no, it does have a cooldown. The cooldown is only 2 net crossing, which basically means that you're able to spam it back to back, okay? Now, no other character is able to do that out of the box. You do have the likes of Ginjima, who is able to do this at 2 dupes. However, to be able to do it literally without any extra dupes or team building, so literally out of the box, Aran Juro is the only one. And then adding on to that, the fact that he is already able to buff up insane amount of his power spike and also insane amount of attack technique. If you remember my previous video, if you have watched that, on how to maximize damage in this game, the idea is that you want to spread out your buffs through different multipliers. So you want some buff in your power attack, you want some buff in your crit, you want some buff in your attack technique. Now, Aran Juro is already naturally high on 2 of them as a result of this. And then if you can actually add in dedicated crit damage, setter such as SP Okawa or SP Akashi, then what's going to happen is that Aran Juro is actually going to be naturally very, very high across all 3 different type multiplier. And that's basically essentially what makes him so broken and doing such a high amount of damage, even though he's only an SSR character. So that is definitely something to bear in mind if you do actually want to achieve a very, very high score for club contest. Now, whether or not you want to do that, that's up to you. Personally, club contest to me is just more about bragging rights, because a lot of time you would already be able to hit, I think, the 11 million in order to get all of the rewards. So anything higher, it's not like you're going to get extra reward. So it's more about bragging rights. So if that's something you are interested in, then definitely try to get some copies of Aran. Even though right now I don't actually think he is going to be hitting as high as the like of SP Ushijima. Sorry, not SP Ushijima. The normal version, UR version of Ushijima, purely because of position. If you actually play UR Ushijima, what's going to happen is that you essentially are able to have basically support unit in your wind spike as well. So you have the likes of Iwazumi or Tanaka or Kita or Yamamoto. All of them are able to provide some kind of passive support to allow you to do more damage. However, if you actually going to end up playing Aran Juro as your main spiker, you're actually going to take up one of those wind spiker slot, and there isn't actually an equivalent support unit in the opposite hitter slot that can actually help Aran Juro to do even more attacks. Okay, so that's kind of what right now, I think as of right now, the best spiker for club contest, allowing you to spam ultimate back to back is still going to be SR2, so basically 2 dupe version of Ushijima. But once position limit has been removed, and also we have a likes of a critical damage setter in the form of either SP Akashi or SP Okawa, that's where Aran Juro is actually going to absolutely shine in club contest. Okay, so if you do want to build up for future, then do consider putting some copies for him as well. Okay.